So a lot of you know me as a developer, but I've always had a second life as a designer. Before my job at LinkedIn teaching technology courses, I was a director of multimedia for a network of TV and radio stations, and I handled every part of the creative process there. So besides the web, I managed photography, TV commercials, vehicle and bus wraps, posters for concerts, and just about everything in between. And today I find myself rethinking some of the ideas behind the creative workflows that I had because of what AI has done. So today I wanted to show you some of the tools that I use to create promos and answer any questions that you might have about them. That's what the show is about. I'm trying to every sort of other week or so have a kind of practical session where I teach you how to use some of these tools. So today we are going to be going through a variety of tools, and I want to show you sort of my process. And let's go ahead, and I have a few little slides here that I want to go through really quick. So I hope everybody's doing great. And basically, what I use today is Midjourney quite a bit, and I'll show you how that works and some of the techniques that I use. And I use Photoshop, and some of the tools in Photoshop are pretty good. I would say probably not the best AI, so I do tend to use other things other than Photoshop for certain tasks. So, for example, upscaling, even background removal. I think that there are better tools, and we can talk about those as well. I use Topaz Gigapixel for upscaling because honestly, I think that it does one of the best jobs. There are some other tools that I think do a better job of like maybe adding information, but in terms of making the images bigger, Gigapixel is just what I use. It's pretty good. And then I use Runway Video. I've been doing that a lot lately to just animate some of the promos that I've been doing. I noticed that I had this question a few weeks ago about what that would do to the virality of my posts. And as you probably know, anytime you do anything that takes more effort, you know, the products will make those kind of things, I think, perform a little bit better. And I have noticed that when I, instead of doing like just a text post, if I do like a photo post, that tends to do a little bit better. But if I also do a video post, that actually does a little bit better because nobody takes the time to do those. And I think that some of these tools are actually have actually gotten to the point where they can be fantastic tools for animating an image really quick. I also do think that some of the tools are really good at creating sort of B-roll type of videos that can illustrate some concepts. If you're doing like a video edit, I think that B-roll is underrated, and you could very quickly have an illustration that helps with some B-roll that you use to make transitions in video. So definitely been using it for that a lot, and I'll show you some of the things that I use and some of the things that I think will be really cool. So I have noticed better performance. Again, I think if you add a photo, the problem now is that everybody can do can generate an image with either something like Copilot Designer for free or a lot of the other tools as well. So I don't think that you'll perform as well as if you just throw it into something like Runway and create a little video animation. My posts are doing better. So now that I said that, everybody's going to do them. All right. So I think like for me, the most valuable techniques are background removal. And as I mentioned, I'll show you some of the things that I use. Photoshop does an okay job, and sometimes it's good enough, but it's not really the best at all. It's not even it's not even close. Upscaling by far, I use that a lot. And as a matter of fact, I think it's rewired my brain. I no longer think about, worry so much about the resolution of my images. Once I saw what AI could do in terms of improving not just the quality, but also adding information to images based on what it knows about the images, I think that it made me rethink about shooting in super high resolution. I know that's probably controversial, but I think that it's really good enough, or sometimes better. I think that than spending the time. And I'll show you kind of maybe a little bit of the process that I use for that. So in a practical way. So I also use inpainting quite a bit to remove things. Lately, I've been using like a background. I have like a pop-up background that you could just sort of grab and pull up. You can get some from Elgato that are pretty good, but I use a third-party one. And if anybody's interested in that, I'll post it. I never use a green screen because I really dislike. I use green screen like when I was doing commercials, and I really could never get rid of the green sort of reflections well enough. I think that if I lit a little bit better, I would do a better job. But I just use like a medium gray is kind of what I use for my background, and it does really well. And I think you'll see an example when I show you the video. Uh, I think that some of the things that I learn, in updating my thinking about how I use AI is that perfection is overrated in terms of not just the resolution, but the creative process usually means thinking of a lot of different ideas. And I think that some of the problems that people have sometimes is that they, especially when generating with AI, is that they have a very specific thing that they want to accomplish. And sometimes the AIs aren't capable of giving them those specific elements. And so I think you need to rethink about, okay, what, instead of me having a very clear idea in my mind of what I want, why don't I use some of these AI tools as brainstorm tools to help me consider other things that I wasn't thinking? And I think that's something like Midjourney is really good at doing that. Uh, so that's one of my sort of things that I've, I guess, rethought. The other thing would be that, yeah, I mean, this is related, that I now prompt with flexibility as opposed to thinking about, I have a very specific thing in my mind. I kind of start with a very simple prompt and see where Midjourney takes me, and I'm completely fine with that. As I mentioned, that since the upscalers are so good, one of the things that I need for a lot of the things that I produce is like little pictures of me with expressions or things like that. So that would be a difficult thing for me to do by myself. So I often now just shoot with video, and I can generate a lot more sort of versions of what I want and iterate very quickly, and then just bring those into something that can upscale them if I need super high resolution, or just bring them in, use background removal tools, and just get going a lot faster. So I'm rethinking. Like I used to do, professional photography when I worked at a radio station. I did all the the photos at concerts, and then all of the photos just for the different talent that we had. But I would consider just shooting with video today. I know that sounds crazy, but I think we're there where the AIs are good enough at adding resolution that the ability to iterate faster is going to just open up the amount of ideas that you'll be able to generate. All right, so I'm gonna basically go through a process where I'm gonna show you how I work with Midjourney to generate a promo for a show. So this is gonna be sort of like a real practical example of how I generate one of my promos. And I will then show you how I bring that into Photoshop. Perhaps I will show you the photo with video process, and then I'll show you my upscaler. That's another fantastic tool, and then I'll show you that sort of animation with Runway. I'm gonna see how well I do. I'm sort of gauging that I'll have like an hour to do all this, but I don't have anything. I've practiced a little bit with certain things, and I do this all the time, but I am going out on a limb here, and hopefully everything will work out. I'll be looking at your comments too, so make sure that you send some comments. I ask a question about what everybody is already using. I see some people are probably have a similar workflow. I haven't used Firefly enough. I know about it. I think it's really good. It uses DALI 3, I think, as the engine for AI. So DALI, I think, is almost as good as Midjourney, but Midjourney is just the best right now. So there's not a good. It doesn't yet have a good interface that's available to everybody. I know that they're releasing new interfaces soon, but we'll see where that goes. Somebody's using Photo Room, which I haven't used, and ChatGPT is, of course. I think if I wasn't talking about specifically, image and creativity, I'd be talking more about maybe my creative process with ChatGPT. Maybe that could be another good show, like how I come up with ideas. It's actually a fantastic tool to help you think of prompts for like Midjourney. It does a good job. If you can't think of something, you can really go back and forth with it, and it does a decent job of generating images. It's not that it's bad. It's just that I feel like Every AI has a different personality, and I like the personality behind Mid Journey. So yeah, clip drop and photo room. Love clip drop and LB. That's one of the tools that I'm showing. So fantastic. Let's see if I have any other slides. So that's it for all my slides. So I am out of out of slides right now. Uh, let's go. I guess we'll get started with the process. So I do have some comments from people already. So feel free to send me some comments. So Brian is saying he's used, where is the comment? There you go. Stable diffusion to make characters, stickers, etc. It's been okay, but a bit intensive on the CPU. So you must be running that locally, which is possible. Yeah, stable diffusion is great, and I have installed it locally. But you're right; it does take up a lot of processing power. So I don't know that I would do it. I think only if I was trying to train it on specific tasks, because stable diffusion is open source, you can train it on just you. But yeah, let's see. Some of the, and then Long is saying some of the background removals too, very often are clip drop and photo room. So I'll show you what I like the best. It's actually a little known tool that probably nobody else uses. Actually, I can do that right now. Let's see. So I haven't found anything that, for me anyways, that worked better. Uh, so I use this little thing called, this app called Deep Image. I don't know if anybody has seen it. And this was when I was doing a show last year that was a lot of interviews with amazing AI people, data scientists, and top like AI people. So you can check that out. Maybe I'll put a link to it in the show notes. So, but what I needed was, okay, I needed to be able to grab an image, and the quickest way to find an image for everyone is just to go to LinkedIn and grab their profile image. Obviously, I do talk to them, about their image, but usually what you found on LinkedIn was horrible. Sometimes they were like 200 by 200 pixels, and I always needed to add them to a layout. So if I go to Photoshop, you can see that this is the kind of thing that I'm going to show you how to do. But I always needed like something like this. The guest this week is going to be whoever it was, right? So I needed to grab their photo, very low resolution, upscale it, and also remove the background. And what I really loved about this tool is that it did both of them in one fell swoop. And it also did absolutely, without a doubt, the best quality. I love Gigapixel, which is what I use now to upscale, but it doesn't remove the background, which is kind of annoying because that's like the two things that I needed. So I always ended up going to this tool, and you just basically drag and drop an image in there, and it'll do both. So actually, let me just go to LinkedIn, and I'll just grab my image really quick and show you. It just did both of the things at the same time. So if I grab my profile image. My profile image is actually one of the things that I'll be showing you. Just imagine that whatever image I'm grabbing, it's going to be a lot worse. And, this is, how big is this thing? So this is pretty good. Usually the things that I got were way worse. And I'll drop that in here. It'll upload the file, and it will do enhance face details, reduce noise, all these things. It does really well. And then I could just, the thing that I could do is remove the background really easily. And then I'll hit generate. And after a minute, and we'll come back to that because who wants to wait while I do? So yeah, definitely if you need to do that particular use case, just, upscale and remove background. And I could probably play around with some of the settings. Oh my gosh, it did a horrible job. In this particular image, I do have a background that is very similar. So this doesn't, this actually does a great job. I should have picked a background that has slightly different color. So this is actually that gray background that I told you about, that I use for my shows. And it's normally gray, but it absorbs the color of whatever light I put on it. And since the lighting is very similar, it is picking that up. So see, I didn't really have a lot of pre-done things to show you. So this is what happens when you try to do something live. Let's see if I can show you. My images. I don't know if I have any previews now. Doesn't look like it saved anything, but you could. It does the best job. Trust me. Uh, I guess you'll have to believe me. But it was just the fastest way to get what I needed, which then you could export and then just bring it to Photoshop. All right, so let's go. Let's go to Midjourney. I don't know if anybody's used Midjourney. The disappointing thing about Midjourney is that it has no free tier, right? So and also it has no interface. It has no API. So it almost seems like the worst tool that you could use because you can't really try it. You have to kind of just go for it, I guess. And But it's just the most capable tool out there, I think. So let me. I think I guess that'll be fine. So you can see kind of. I just did this for a recent post, right? And then I animated it with Runway. I think it was. Is it Runway? No. Oh, hey, Jen. No, it is Runway. Runway. All right. So I'm just gonna try to show you what I do, and I'm going to attempt to do, kind of a promo for maybe one of the future episodes that I'm thinking about. So the way that you use this is you use the imagine command, and there's a number of commands, and then you use a prompt that you want to use. And I'm gonna keep it to a robot. So I'm gonna say a robot sitting at a desk with its back facing the camera, and I'm gonna say he's so generally the way that I work with Midjourney is by giving it a number of different sentences. Each sentence tends to be like a command. So Midjourney does really well, and actually Dolly does a little bit of a better job with this. It does pretty well in version 6 of following your commands. So you want to kind of separate the settings, describe it in chunks. So I tend to go something like a robot and kind of describe the setting a little bit and then give it some sort of additional commands. And that seems to work pretty well for me. Uh, I'll say he's sitting at a desk with his back facing the camera. There are a lot of tools on the desk. In front of him, I'll just say him, are a bunch of monitors displaying different AI applications. We'll just go with that. So after I kind of describe the scene, I tend to sort of tell it how I want it, the style output. Lately, I've been using like Vexel spray paint kind of as my default style. So I'm going to say uh, drawn, I'll try this, drawn in a Vexel, which means kind of more vectory spray paint style, right? And normally you want to put in some commands here, but you can add default commands. So I always like my aspect ratio to be 16:9, which is square. And there's a bunch of other things that it should automatically have. And you can do that in your settings. So I'm just going to go with this. Now, the one thing that I've learned from doing this is that you never want to give Midjourney an image that's in your mind perfectly. So this it's already looking pretty good. So Midjourney is using a diffusion engine that basically tries to. So actually, it didn't do a robot. Did I say a robot? Okay, so I might have to go with. But actually, I think what it did is pretty good in terms of what I had in my brain. It didn't do a robot, so I might try to emphasize those things a little bit. But I want to show you some of my previous generations as I was trying to do generations where there was two robots talking to each other. One of the robots, one employee of the month. Now, it has a hard time with multiple people when you try to specify multiple people. There are some ways around that. So I try different ways of specifying my idea. And then I ended up with just going with a, sort of single robot in the final generation, which I think I was fine with. right? It worked out pretty well. So this is the one that I ended up with, right? And yeah, you could see that before if you're wondering what the heck is this, I was experimenting with showing you can prompt and ask Midjourney to give you, uh, use any version of the engine. So I was trying out what did this prompt look in the different versions of the engine, and you could see the progression of how good they've gotten. This Midjourney is only like a couple years old. I think it's July 2022, so maybe not even 2 years old, and it's progressed quite a bit. Now, this is interesting. I thought that if you look at this is 5.2. So before version 6, which is still in beta, it did a really good generation that I actually liked a little bit better than some of the newer versions. But this is what it does without any style references at all. So even though this might not look as good as this, I think that it's it's a better starting point, and you sort of add creativity on top. So let's see. So you could see some of these are wild. This looks like a cow to me. So here's another generation that I did for another post. And again, I took this into the video animation tool that allowed me to create a video animation instead of a static prompt. But a lot of times, so for some reason, it seemed to have copied this in my later prompt. Then I was trying to do something with the timeline, right? And it did a decent job. And you could see some of these examples. And then I ended up using, I think, this one. And then I tried animating a version. I'll show you these in a minute where I just remove this item from the background. So, all right, let's see. Let's kind of see if I'm not going to be too picky about these tools. So once you do a generation, you have a bunch of options with the generation. I like this style here. This is kind of like, I think, the Vexel, a little bit more vectory. And then I don't know that it did spray paint as much as I wanted it to, but I add that because I think it just gives it a little bit of an extra sort of pizzazz in the style. And maybe you could see some stuff right here. So I'm gonna go with this one. So basically, in Midjourney, you do a generation. It gives you four options, and then you upscale or you create a variation on uh, the generation that you made. So I'm gonna try doing a variation on number two because it has a look that I like. Although actually, I think that maybe it doesn't need to be a robot. I think a person is cool. Maybe instead of, so I'm gonna modify this a little bit. A robot sitting at a desk with its back facing the camera. There are a lot of tools on the desk in front of. I'll try changing this to the robot are a bunch of monitors displaying different AI applications. Uh, and I'll add something like the environment is electrified. So I can modify this prompt and try sort of a slightly different version of it to see what it does. So I'm going to go submit, and it's going to start a new version of that generation. And what's interesting is notice that this is like the diffusion engine at work. Diffusion works. It's a really interesting way that these models are trained. So with diffusion, you basically have the models have been trained by showing them an image and having noise. Have somebody add noise, random noise to the image, and then the models learn how to basically reverse that process and get rid of noise. And when you first generate, you can actually see that process happening in real time. It's almost like I say that it's akin to if you were driving around in the fog and you can't really tell what's what, but then all of a sudden you kind of see a shape and your brain starts kind of organizing that. It's very much like that, and it's very much like what would happen in a dream. So I'm gonna click on this to see. So there's a little bit more electrification. I think I'm gonna be pretty happy with one of these, uh, and I'm just gonna not worry about the robot so much. But I really like some of these styles right here. Let's say that I go with this one. So now my next step would be to upscale that particular version, right? So I'm gonna go upscale 3 here. That's just going to, and it does it really quick. It's going to generate a higher resolution version of the image. And then from here, I can do some additional variations. So I'm going to click this very strong, and it's going to give you some additional variations of this same image, which I guess I just did that. But then you can also use the zoom and pan tool. So this would be out painting. You can zoom out of the image, and I can actually go ahead and start one of the zooms. So if I think that I need to be a little flexible, by default, Midjourney tends to just put things in the center. You can try to make things move, but honestly, you don't even have to anymore because you can do a zoom out, which is what you see right here, and it's going to add more of the room again because I know that I can upscale. I don't necessarily I don't necessarily worry that I not don't have enough resolution with these generations. So let's take a look at what it did here. Wow, some of these have a lot of screens, which is fine. Great. And let's see. Some of these are hard to sort of decide from. So I'm going to go with this third one. So I'm getting close to the edge. And normally I would do a lot more variations, and perhaps I would really try to get it to do a robot. I don't know why it's not giving me a robot. Maybe like, I don't know if I didn't do sitting at a desk, but we'll just kind of go. Actually, so was one of these zooming out even more? Well, let's maybe look at some of these. All right. So no, I don't really like the zoom out here as much. So I'm just going to go with this one and just do upscale 3. And I'm just going to go with it because we don't have all the time in the world. Although maybe I would appreciate a little more. I'm not going to worry about it. All right, so I'm going to ask it to upscale this image to give me a little more resolution. And whenever it upscales, it actually does change the image a little bit. So you have to be kind of fine with that. And that isn't a big deal. So I can ask Midjourney to upscale, or I can do my upscales a little bit later with Gigapixel. I'll show you that actually right after this. And it does, this upscale is more AI generated. The upscaler in something like Gigapixel is going to be just I don't know, less creative. We'll see if it changes this a lot. Now, Gigapixel, the thing like about Gigapixel, so let me go ahead and run that, is that it's unlike everything is now like a subscription price. I like Gigapixel because you pay once, and then they release new versions often. So if I like something about the new version, then I can, if I'm happy with the current version, that's fine. Otherwise, if I think they've really made a significant um, change, then I'll go ahead and pay them some more money, which I think is kind of fair. I'm not really into the all of the subscriptions that we're getting nowadays. So it looks like it's taken a long time. So I'm just going to go with this one just to go into the, maybe I'll go back and show you that later on. So I'm going to save this image into my machine. Okay, so we'll go with robot. This is not really a robot person working. I'll call it just on my desktop. And that's that. And I don't know why it's like not doing anything with it. I think it's 31% done for the upscale. Maybe the upscaler is just like a little bit less fast or slower. So I am pulling up Gigapixel from Topaz here, and there's an update available. I'm always uh, very tempted to update. As a matter of fact, right before the show, I updated my Ecamm just because I'm crazy like that. So I'm going to drag and drop this tool. This is actually going to use your machine also. It doesn't have to go to the web or anything. And then you can kind of see how the upscale works. You can upscale depending on how much resolution you think you're going to need. And I hope that you can see kind of the differences enough between the two here. So here's what the image looks like on the left. Here's what the AI is doing. There's a lot of different options here. And let's see what, so this is going to be 28 megabytes. And over here, the resize mode would be 2019. This is probably I usually do my images at 1920 by 1080, like HD resolution. This is twice as much. I may want to go with like a 4x just to have even more room to like move things over to the side. But hopefully you could see the difference is pretty amazing in the quality of what it's doing, right? I've got super pixelated stuff right here. And there is a bunch of optimizers, or basically these are different models that you can use to process the image, and they'll create slightly different versions of the image. So you can play around with these. I'm just going to go with this one's fine. And I'll save this image. Let's see. Just put it on the desktop again, because my original image was only 816 pixels tall, and I don't normally like that. So it finished with my automatic generation, or I think it finished. It's still kind of giving me a little saving thing, but it's getting there. So what happens when you do things live. And so my next step would be to take this and go into Photoshop. We can, right, where I have my design from the last show that I did, this show actually, waiting for me. And I'm going to try to bring this image now into Photoshop. Let's see, is it done? Yeah, so it's done with the generation. I'll just bring this in here. You can see the previous image had that robot, right? And it goes into a layer, so not anything complicated here. I tend to I like the consistency of having like these lines in every one of my promos. And then I would go through and play around with the text, update the text and everything. So now I'm going to show you how I approach my image generation. Now, another thing that you could do here that I really like is, let's say that, well, I don't really want the person to be over there. I want the person to be over here, right? So that I can see the person more. So I have the option of either using Midjourney to generate the the image shifted over. So there are some tools that will do outpainting that will do that, or I can also just use Photoshop for that. So and we'll see how good Photoshop does. Photoshop does have a generative fill. So let's see if we just add background to this image. And I think I can just, yeah, I think I could just leave this blank. Let's try just leaving it blank and hitting generate and see what it does. And now what Photoshop does is it's going to give you 4 versions, I think, of the image, and you can kind of pick which one looks better. We'll see how good it does, because this is a pretty complicated background with like a lot of elements. But I think it did a decent job here. So you could see that it always gives you different options. So I don't know which one I like. I only did 3. This one looks pretty good. But, I no longer worry about, is that image composed properly? Because I can always just use AI to give me a little bit of more of an image if I need to. So that's kind of one of the ways that it makes me kind of rethink my creative workflow, right? I sort of started like not to worry about stuff as much as I did, right? So that also looks better. I may, because I have so much resolution, I may make this a little bit bigger, but I'm not going to worry about that. So let's talk about this kind of process of generating photos, because that's another thing that shifted in my brain. So I used to have a photo studio at the uh, you know um, radio company, right, where I used to do a lot of shots of the talent, promotions. For radio, you would think we would need to do that. Also, like I mentioned, I did concerts and stuff like that. But whenever I need to do a photo for social media and I just need a photo of myself, uh, it's really difficult for me to do it by myself, and because obviously the camera would have to sit somewhere in front of me. I would kind of like maybe set up the room, hit the button with probably a test person, and then do some sort of either triggering with my phone or triggering with some sort of app, which I've done in the past. And it's just a pain, because if you probably put the thing on a timer so that after 3 you get the photo. Well, I don't do that anymore, because I can just do that by basically recording a video. And I know this is going to look really kind of silly. So this is my best face. Like my favorite shot is me just waiting to realize that I'm starting the recording. But this is how I do them now. So you could see that I have my gray background, my solid gray background, just to simplify the fact that I'm not going to use the background at all. I would probably want, as you saw when I use the transparency tools, the background remover, it would be better if I had a different color background. And you could definitely do that. I would probably be okay if I just use this background. But when I'm for these particular shots, what I was trying to do is just, uh, generate a bunch of different faces or different poses, and then just use them for you know, thumbnails like the one that I was doing, right? So this is basically just me recording a video of me doing a bunch of dumb poses. So let's just pick one. Let's see. Let's find a crazy one. These are ridiculous. Okay, here's me being angry. Okay, that's a great social media post if I ever saw one. So to extract this from QuickTime, I do copy. So I'm going to do a copy. So basically, I open this up in QuickTime, right? And I'm just going to do a copy, and then I'm going to run the preview application. So this is how I extract like a frame out of a video. And then when the preview application loads, so it's on the other screen, it looks like this. Before I do anything else, I'm just going to hit Command N, and it actually will use whatever's on my clipboard to generate a file, right? That then I can just save, right? So save this. I'll call it, I don't know, Angry Ray. Okay, so we'll do that. So now I have a nice PNG, maybe not the best resolution. So let me just show you. So this is what I got. It's probably fine for a social media post, but if I was going to use that, say like on a poster, I would want to generate more resolution that, than I have. I did notice somebody asked a question, Michael. Great question. You should watch my previous episode because I cover exactly my video editing process, and not like all the way from the um, how I write my scripts and organize everything to editing and something I call Descript, which you would love because it has all these features. You totally should watch last time's video, and you can go to youtube.com/ at playtime. So it's PLAI and then time. And the previous episode, just go to live here, and you can see the ones playtime edit videos with AI. Descript is amazing. It can go through and, like, what I demoed was it could go through and find all of the times that you repeated a sentence and automatically create a version of the video that's kind of pre-edited. It finds like any times that you say ums or ahs or you repeat maybe a word, it can find those. It can find gaps. So like a lot of times when I'm recording a video, I pause while something is perhaps processing. So it can automatically find like all those places and automatically just get rid of them. So you would love it. Totally check out this video. And that's what this show live stream is about, like showing you kind of practical things. And I did that last time, so totally check that out. Okay, so where were we? So I was over here. I say that ain't normal. Okay, so I have a great image. I'm just gonna bring this into Photoshop. And here I would try to just use the Photoshop background remover. So I'm going to say put this person here, maybe resize it, and we'll see about the background remover. We'll get rid of the old one, right? And we'll just leave myself running over here, and I'll just hit remove background and see what kind of a job it does. It does a pretty decent job. There's a little bit of fringing. Again, I think this would be better if I had a different colored background. So I can clean that up really quick. Just clean this edge up a little bit. Nope, wrong color here. But see, I no longer worry about high resolution or shooting. Maybe I'll put myself, I don't know, where do I make the most sense layout wise? right? And say I put myself there. Okay, that's good enough for like a demo. We've already got like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. All right, so we're doing great. So what if I wanted to, as I mentioned, another thing that I like doing with these tools is creating like a post that has an animation instead of a static image. That's a pretty good static image, but let's see what we can do with a tool that is designed to help you create a video out of a static image. All right, so I did want to show you some other things about these tools. So basically, the set of different tools that I have access to are three different AI image type generators, right? Besides Midjourney, so I have Leonardo, I have Runway, and let's see, I have ClipDrop, right? So let's see, do I not have ClipDrop drop in here? Yeah, so ClipDrop was made by Stability AI, the people behind Stable Diffusion. So that was actually a partnership between Stable Diffusion and another company that so Runway, right? They actually together created most of Stable Diffusion, which is an open source project, which means you can go get it, customize it, and check it out. So, but they each of these companies have created a different set of tools. You could see that for ClipDrop, you could do all the things that we've been doing here. Replace a background. You can do image generation with XL Turbo. You can use face swap. I tried that. I can't find a good face swap algorithm. I think it's just because I just have a unique face, right? So it doesn't do a good job. Uh, so I'm not really happy with that, but it can remove the background. Honestly, Photoshop does it just fine. I know that Canva has a fantastic background removal tool. So I think we're gonna see face swap be like a thing later on. One of the interesting things in here are the reimagine and the stable doodle. So stable doodle lets you draw a picture and then it'll generate based on that doodle that you do. But there's actually a better version of this. So I don't know. We'll do like a stick figure here. And I'll just say, what happens if I do a happy face? I don't know. We'll see what it does later on. But there's actually Clip Drop isn't as good as Runway. No, Leonardo actually has this amazing thing called real time generation, which if you haven't tried it, it's amazing. Let's try a happy face robot in a, I don't know, driving a sand dune. Let's see. So it kind of made the robot into a, I guess, a sand dune thingy. And let's try, what's a good place? In Antarctica, just to show something different. Antarctica, so, like, let's try just in the snow. So I like this tool because as you're trying to come up with an idea, you can see how long it took for Midjourney. It wasn't too bad, but real time beats anything. And I think that for a creative tool, as you're trying to think of a concept, this is actually probably the best thing for brainstorming ideas because it's just immediate. And once you find something you like, you could just get it. And there's also different sort of parameters that you can set up in here, right? Which I think it's just amazing. So definitely check that out. It's Real Time Jane from Leonardo. Also, Leonardo it's originally designed to do game assets. What one of the things that they do is they have a number of models. Each model gives you basically different styles of artwork. So when you do image generation, you have all these different parameters that you can use. But the main thing that you do is you could see where I was trying to do a dancing robot, but I wanted the robot to do like a breakdance routine, and it had a really hard time with that. That's where all these not safe for work content detected. Trust me, these are all safe for work. Just that I was trying to basically have the robot have a hand on the floor and have its feet up in the air, and it was just going nuts with the generations there. So yeah, so this is kind of like I try uploading an image or generating an image with the post that I wanted, but it was doing things like this. Some of like this is what it was giving me. It's not quite ready for everything yet. So you have like models that can do pixel art, realistic type images, more illustrations, and basically you pick the style that you want. Whereas something like Midjourney is a little bit more free flow. Uh, Now, out of all these tools, well, I was going to show HeyGen, but that's really just for creating like a digital avatar. Now, the reason I use Runway is because it has this amazing tool for generating videos. And as I mentioned, I've been rethinking about do I need to, like, now that I can create any kind of image in any style that I want, would it be better if I use videos instead of images? And sure enough, if I, let's see, if I hit view assets, is that where all my stuff is? Yeah, you could see that basically I generated some video, right, for these different robots that I was showing you. It does a horrible job with the hands here, but for a quick little animation for a promo, I think this is way more effective. I also think that for something like B rolls, this can generate fantastic B rolls really well. So let's see, edit videos. No, generate videos. I think, where are my actual videos so you could see all of them? I find that, okay, maybe assets. As you can see, so this is one of the things that it does do is let you train a model with your face. And, I think actually this is my best version of it trying to generate a version of me riding a bike. Although my hands may be a little bit weird, and I don't know about these mirrors, but I got to give it to the tool. Not bad. So you can do this. I was disappointed with most of the other images that were generated. They basically look like distant cousins. Uh, that's the best way I can describe it. But let's look at videos. Generate videos. Let's see. Sometimes I have a hard time finding my files here, I know. Manage your plan, account, workspace. Alrighty. Let's try. Yeah, so you could see some of the other generations that I did here. And also here's some of the other assets that I've done in the past. So if this is me training the model on my face, I send it a ton of photos, and you could see some of the other animations that I have done here with images that are pretty good. But that's not really what I want to do. I really want it to just get me to my projects. Go to assets, projects maybe. Nope. Home. All right, so maybe generate videos is what I want, and I will say start with an image here, and what I'll do is I will bring in that image that I just created. I'm going to bring in the slightly higher resolution version here, and I'll drag and drop it. And this tool has all these amazing capabilities. For example, you can either control the generation by specifying how the camera is going to move, if it's going to rotate, zoom in, pan, etc., move horizontally, vertically. Or the other option is to use this motion brush. This is pretty cool because then I can't really have to wait until it's done. But basically, it will allow you to paint in with different color brushes the things that you want the generation to move, and then you can tell it how you want it to move those things. So do you want to do like a pan on this element? Do you want to zoom this in? Do you want to leave this alone? That kind of granular control is really good. So hopefully it won't take too long since I uploaded the higher resolution image. But I find that just to begin with, just letting it do its thing normally, usually so far, maybe I'm just not amazing at generating, controlling, visualizing the motion, but I find that the default things are pretty good. So hopefully this won't take too much longer. So just it's finishing uploading. And then I'm just going to hit the generate button. So if you saw, in the meantime, I can show you maybe some of the posts that I have done recently using this. And everything's being really slow. All right, so if I go to posts, you can see that I did a little post of my robot. And you can see the video that it kind of generated, right? And if you scroll through my posts, you can see that I am now basically doing all my posts with little videos instead of images because it does such a good job. And I think they are performing pretty well. So let's go back into this video. Doesn't look like it's done yet, but hopefully that gave you an idea. Let's see. I'm afraid of refreshing because I don't know what it will do, but let's go for it. And of course, it looks like it halted my generation. So I'm going to try it again with the lower resolution version of the image, see if it does it a little bit quicker. Yeah, so definitely a lot quicker. We'll wait a minute here. Yeah, and then we'll do generate 4 seconds. The nice thing is that you can ask it to continue to generate 4 seconds and it'll just make your generation longer. It does, you get a certain number of basically seconds a month, right? And you can, of course, add more credits. But I am on, I don't know, one of the smaller plans. And I think it's for generating promos. You should try it out yourself and see if it's worth, in terms of traffic, if it does a little bit better for everyone in terms of traffic. So 253. While this is generating, let me see if there's any questions that I need to answer. So somebody, LinkedIn, a random LinkedIn user says, Ray Villalobos, thanks for this hands-on workshop. Runway is fantastic. Dali's really good. I don't know what LinkedIn algorithm master is, but I don't know what that is. So we'll check that out. Yeah, B rolls, nothing. It really, when you're trying to, sometimes you just, the audiences today, they want things to happen faster. So B rolls are a great way of handling transitions in videos. It's definitely a technique that I think works really well. All right, so let's see, drum roll. Let's see what it did. Oh, that's not bad. Again, I don't like that the kind of face changed a little bit, and that's where you would maybe use the brush to try to get it to control. And maybe there's a way of helping that along, but you get the gist of how you work with it. Yeah, I never heard of Plas. Somebody else is saying Plas for Son's project. But definitely something worth checking out. Yeah, so basically, I think that the fact that I have all these additional tools has really shifted my brain to think about how I can use things differently. I don't think of creative projects in the same way anymore because I have tools that allow me to just add another piece of a background somewhere, generate creatively. And, it used to be that I would have to I would sort of do a lot of work with a picture in my mind. That's also been something that I have shifted. I am a little bit more flexible in how I generate things. And I make sure that in my creative process, I include all those things: background generation, upscaling, video, perhaps video generation for B rolls and things like that. So I think that that's kind of where I was going in this particular episode. I am going to be releasing these hopefully about every couple of weeks, just giving you some additional sort of ideas in my mind. I have so many fantastic sort of hardware tools. So maybe something on like how I stream or the hardware tools that I use to produce videos, that could be useful. It could be more AI specific stuff, perhaps something on on how I use ChatGPT, let me know in the comments, or let me know by just connecting with me on LinkedIn what you want to learn about, and we'll continue to play together. Thank you so much. Yeah, the stream, Ben. Yes, the stream is always available either on YouTube and the YouTube channel, or on LinkedIn if you signed in through LinkedIn. Just this will be playable afterwards. I do release a few extra things on YouTube, so definitely check out the videos there as well because they're a little bit different than everything else. So besides, I talk a lot, been talking a lot more about prompting, but I'll probably toss some AI/image videos in there. And then, of course, I have all my courses on LinkedIn uh, under my name. Just look for Ray Villalobos, and I create a lot of content there as well. You can see I have things on how to run an LLM locally on my computer. That was the latest course that I did. And right now I'm actually, the reason I'm doing this particular episode is I'm working on an image generation course that explains some of these tools and then how you can use them in a slightly different way that I think you'll find interesting. So check all that stuff out, and hopefully I will see you soon.